Hi and welcome to the Learning Letters podcast. My name is Maarten de Laat and today I'm with Negan Meriahi, Florence Gabriel and George Siemens. Together we are the editors-in-chief of this new journal called Learning Letters. We're all members of the Center for Change, Complexity and Learning at the University of South Australia. And before we talk more about the journal, I wonder, George, if you could say something about the research center and the kind of work that's being done there.
Sure, thanks, Martin. C3L is a research center at the University of South Australia. We're the top center in the EdTech domain in the country and one of the leading centers globally. We have over 70 academics and 30 plus PhD students included in that, involved in the center. We have a broad focus on really any aspect of technology, analytics, data science, and AI, and how those trends and trajectories are reflected in and ultimately impact what happens in the education sector. And we have researchers that look at really the full domain of learning across the span of life, from primary to secondary through to higher education, and then ultimately into the labor market when individuals are actually employed and applying those skills in practical settings.
Thank you. And as we all have seen today, or recently, basically, there's a lot of new events happening within the domain of education, particularly with AI. And this is one of the reasons for starting this new journal, to keep up with the trends and developments in this education technology space. So we are very excited to join this, to launch this first new journal. And in this podcast, we would like to explain why and what this journal is all about. So George, could I give the mic to you to sort of explain a little bit what the journal is about and why we are launching this new journal?
Great. Well, I think one of the things we're all experiencing is that it's difficult to stay on top of the trends and innovations, to stay on top of them just simply due to the speed and the pace at which things are happening today. And that has an important component for us in that we want to make decisions in the education sector that are reflective of the latest and the most consequential research that we can bring to bear on these really tough, sometimes intractable problems that are evident in numerous school and education settings. So we need something that allows us to quickly get the research into the hands of the people who are actually making decisions. Secondly, a lot of traditional education journals, for good reason, have a fairly lengthy article approach. And so you'll read 8 to 10 to 12,000 words in order to get to sort of the gem of the idea. And our interest was to say there's a gap in the landscape of publications for people who have early research and early results that they want to get out quickly, and not in an 8 to 10,000 word article, but something that might be more in the 2 to 2,500 word article, so that the focus is on quickly getting promising research out through a peer review process that can then make its impact quickly, rather than this long peer review effect that can sometimes run for 12 to 18 months. And that's the third aspect that we're looking at, is the reasonably quick timeline for peer review and then for publication. And so we're trying to get those kinds of challenges integrated. So our primary concern then is we want to get research into the hands of individuals, researchers, and decision makers as fast as possible. We want to put it in a format that's readily accessible, and we want to be able to make sure that it's good quality research that's gone through the peer review process. So our intent is to say, look, as fast as the world is going, as quick as AI came on the landscape, we need to be able to do a better job of the system of publishing and sharing that research.
Yeah, I think that's a very good idea, especially just get this quick turnaround and make sure that sort of new exciting findings about research in education are being disseminated quite broadly. So you said the journal is stepping into a wide access. So will the journal be open access, for example?
Yes, absolutely. I think we want to promote impact, and we want to make sure that when you have either, let's say you've got an associate dean in a university setting needing to make a decision on how to deploy some new initiative that focuses on AI, or if you have someone in the K-12 sector that's evaluating, what's the latest learning sciences research around social and emotional learning, or someone in the corporate sector that's looking at the reskilling and upskilling models. We want them over time to be able to have a trusted source they can go to that is open access and is readily available, We're also particularly aware that the somewhat Western worldview that dominates much of higher education for many people, that view often excludes people in other regions of the world who are as sophisticated in their technology use. And when these kinds of publications are locked behind a paywall, some of that research can't make it into the hands of people who are making the same kinds of decisions we are, whether it's in Canada or US or Europe or Australia. The same problems require widely disseminated research. So that's our decision for going open.
Yeah, that's a wonderful point. And I think it's really important that it's not only reaching out to academics, to our peers basically doing research in education or ed tech, but also a much broader audience like teachers, school leaders, policymakers, stakeholders like that basically. So in short, with the focus on short articles, what will be sort of the style of the kind of articles that people can submit?
We're flexible. We're going to co-evolve as the community evolves as well, and as we see what kinds of things people are interested in publishing. But first and foremost, we are looking at high quality research, often early stage research. We want individuals to put forward their best articles that show promising areas of further development, perhaps in longer, more elaborate publication formats over time. We are asking for original research, so it's not republication of work that's been done elsewhere. And we're also looking at provocative conceptual pieces that try to move the discussion in ways that we're now starting to see happen in various parts of the education sector. So there are ways in which we need to confront the frameworks under which we operate. We need to ask ourselves questions around what kinds of theories are needed, what kinds of literacies are required. And so we are asking as well for thoughtful, research-oriented articles that do introduce conceptual or key differences in that regard. We do want to promote the inclusion of openness across the spectrum. That means if you're publishing data, we'd love to have the data being openly hosted so others can work with the data as well. We want to make sure that as the broader community starts to use this journal as a space to disseminate their resources, that it's a place that is an early staging area for the most promising outputs. And so in that regard, we have a number of initiatives that will develop over time that will make sure that the research has the broadest impact that it possibly can. And that means some flexibility in format, whether it's a peer-based or multi-author formats, whether it's single author looking at a single research study. We also want a space where academics and PhD students can start to get their ideas out early as well, and a format that's accessible but focuses almost exclusively on the results of the research rather than more of the focus on situating within a broader paradigm, which is important. But in this instance, we want results out fast, new research out fast, and articles that support that at any perspective, including conceptual, will be sought.
Excellent. So with getting those results out fast, we're not necessarily focusing on journal or articles that focus on preliminary findings. I think it has to cover full research. Yeah. So with these shorter articles then in like you explained, in comparison to the more traditional journals that have more like 7,000 or more words, will there be enough room for authors to actually detail their studies? And what are our experiences so far with working with that?
That's a great question, and one way I think to look at it is there's certain publication venues that are able to take ideas and get the results out. And one is, Nature is a common example. You can read a Nature article that'll be a tight article that focuses on the method and the results. A lot of articles, and again, I don't want to diminish those at all. There's a place for them. A lot of articles have a long lead in to situate the research in sort of the historical context, and then go through the process of explaining methodology and results. So in some ways, what we're saying is we want to see the methods and the results. That's sort of a primary focus. We don't want to dismiss the value of those other dynamics. There's other journals that already exist, but we are arguing that when things move as fast as they move in the EdTech, learning analytics, AI landscape, that we actually need a framework that allows important results to be shared quickly. And so there absolutely will be space for people to share their methodology, to share their results and their analysis. And in fact, that's what we want to spotlight, is those particular outputs.
Perfect. So Florence, the journal offers these sort of quick turnaround short articles with a focus on results, but that's not the only way we engage and interact with the readers and the authors. Can you tell us a little bit more about the other initiatives that are associated with this journal?
Of course. So each article that will be published in Learning Letters can be supported with a short online module in Lift. So Lift is an open edX platform hosted by C3L at the University of South Australia. And authors will have the opportunity to share more details about their studies. And they can do so, for example, by presenting short videos with their co-authors on the findings, or record a podcast to give a bit more context about the study, and there they can talk a bit more about their theoretical framework. And they can also engage in online discussions with the community. So it can really take multiple shapes and forms. And the Learning Letters journal will obviously provide learning design support to have their articles set in Lift.
Nice. So this is another way of extending your story, basically, and provide more background information associated with the studies that are being published in Learning Letters.
Right.
So how do the authors engage with this? So what are the steps in order to present something in Live Learning?
So let me walk you through the process of creating and submitting Lift Learning events. So first of all, as you would, authors kickstart the process by submitting their paper to Learning Letters. And once the papers are received, they undergo a rigorous review by the editorial desk. And from there, the manuscripts are carefully examined and evaluated for their suitability through peer review. So far, a very regular process.
Standard process.
Very standard. So for the papers that are accepted, then they can progress to the Lift stage. And at this point, our technical editor, who really plays a crucial role in this process, will reach out to the authors to gauge their interest in hosting a Lift Learning event. And this is really an exciting opportunity for researchers to share their insights and also contribute to the learning community. So the researchers will then be requested to prepare a short paragraph outlining their objectives and their aspirations. And this paragraph will serve as a guide to showcase their vision and their intention. And following the review outcomes, and that may involve some revisions or enhancements, our technical editor will closely collaborate with the researchers. And with the completion of the review stage, the article transitions into production. And the final step involves the article and the Lift Learning events getting published. And both components come together to present the author's work to the wider community, whilst also fostering engagement and knowledge exchange. And I would also like to add that the technical editor, in their capacity, extends their responsibilities beyond the submission process. So we'll undertake the task of amplifying outreach and also enhancing participant engagement in Lift. And this encompasses setting up strategic media channels and also announcing noteworthy developments and proactively engaging with automated indexing services. So the role of the technical editor really ensures that Lift continues to thrive, attracts a diverse audience, and also serves as a hub for the advancement of teaching and learning.
Oh, that's excellent. So with the Live Learning events, then, will they remain accessible for the readers, or is it just a one-time moment sort of event where you have to be there for a particular day or a week or something like that? How does that? How do readers continue to engage with the Live Learning events, basically?
So all the learning events will remain accessible through the Lift platform, so people can engage with them whenever they want, essentially.
Okay, so it's persistent. It'll similar to the journal article. Basically, the Live Learning background information will be there for them to enjoy. Okay, that's good. So Negan, I'd like to ask you a few questions about the first inaugural issue. So we are about to launch this first issue in July. Can you tell us a little bit more about what is the focus of this first issue?
Sure, Martin. So the inaugural issue is very exciting. As George mentioned, a lot of talk right now is around artificial intelligence within the education sector. However, this particular issue is really focusing around the theme of neighboring disciplines. So while we do have a couple excellent articles introducing generative AI. We also have articles on learning analytics as well as educational technology design and development. And it's really about not only how through education we can start to involve artificial intelligence in an ethical way, affecting our policies, enhancing our learning designs, and enhancing our students' experience and outcomes. It's also about how we can leverage the vast literature over the past 10 years at least in learning analytics, but going back decades in educational technology and in data science and machine learning to apply those to these challenging era of how do we live in society, in education, how do we work and play with generative AI.
Wow. So that covers a lot, and that should be a very good example then of the kind of focus that we want to have within this learning.
Yes, it does cover a lot. We kick off the inaugural issue with a great piece introducing generative AI, and in particular the first 100 days since ChatGPT became publicly available. We then move on to exploring how data management systems through AI can be handled, what frameworks and policies and equitable challenges we need to overcome to be able to do effective AI in higher education or in education more broadly. And then we turn our attention to assessment analytics and a fairly new area called belonging analytics. And from there, we move on to addressing some of the challenges around using the vast amount of data, often personal data around student use, and whether something called synthetic data generators could be a solution to not always having to use students' own personal data. And on that, we move on to what we've learned previously in literature and ed tech and learning analytics and design around how we actually can engage our stakeholders when we design educational technology systems, AI systems, and digital learning solutions, whether they be for education or for the workplace. So a lot going on, but really around that idea of neighboring disciplines coming together and trying to engage previous literature, new data, new research as it emerges to progress this next era of AI in education.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, we're confronted with sort of these wicked complex problems, so having an interdisciplinary sort of field of work, I think, is very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and this first issue is a good example of that. And, you know, it'll be out in July, so have a look at the website and keep this space occupied basically with new journals, new articles and things like that. So if we're looking at sort of what's next, what will happen after this first inaugural issue, how can potential authors engage with the journal? How can they submit new articles to us?
Excellent question, Martin. Well, the journal's always open to receiving new submissions and going onto the website learningletters.org. You can read all the information about the journal, the intent of the journal, and the submission process. We also encourage authors to get together to submit a special issue proposal for the journal as well. So we do intend to not only publish a range of papers as they're submitted, but also collect them into special issues, particularly around these emerging themes around AI in education, or digital learning and learning analytics and data science moving forward, and how perhaps they can bridge together to be able to move the field forward. So yeah, take a look at the website for the submission process.
Excellent. So thanks for that. So basically the journal welcomes new papers, but also call for special issues run by special guest editors then basically.
That's right. And with the special issues and the guest editors, the editorial team will be working with them closely, supporting them through that process.
And around these special issues, then people can also have their own lived learning events focused on this.
Yes, absolutely. As Florence outlined, the lived learning procedure and our technical editors are available to support the guest editors and special issues as well.
Okay, well, thank you all then for your time explaining and launching this new journal. I think we're all looking very excitedly to this space in July to launch the first issue, and we hope to receive many publications submitted to our new journal together with that opportunity to provide these lived learning events. So keep an eye out on the website and submit your research. thank you all for joining this podcast, and see each other again sometime soon.